with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there. Listen to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you could share, subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the latest State of Pro Wrestling, which we'll have later this week. Also, as well, the PCC Multiverse, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, all the great things that we do right here on the channel. So please go ahead and support us today, right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. Indeed, it is the man behind all the things that he does at the Happy Hoarder and the Super BS Gamescast, plus his own great journal. Indeed, it is, of course, a good man that you got to go ahead and check out each and every time that he's here. It is Josh the Great Peterson. What's up, man? Huge weekend for pop culture.
Yeah, I've been keeping up with it. Actually, I've been checking all the outlets every hour or so. Yesterday, seeing what's new, what's going on. I'm sure we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, but also I gotta tell you, man, I've been catching up on House of the Dragon, working on getting through that first season right now, and I gotta say, man, it's like I feel like it's kind of overhyped a little bit.
It's all right. I will be catching up later today on all the episodes of it. It's all right. They love their shock and awe on House of the Dragon, but they haven't had enough shock and awe yet. It seems to me like similar to what The Boys season 4 went through, and that it is good, but the previous material in the series was just so good to viewers that it's really hard to keep up. Although, that didn't stop the people from watching The Boys. And we'll have some info on The Boys here from Comic-Con later in the show as well.
Yeah, it's funny though, because when you go in, like the Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones, I think it was like the first 3 or 4 seasons had a ton of shock and awe, but by the time that 5th, 6th season rolled around, like we'd already become so desensitized to a lot of the stuff that they're showing in the show, in that show, and the various seasons that followed, that now I'm going through watching House of the Dragon. I'm like, oh yeah, like the pregnant lady going out and having her dragon burn her to death, like stuff like that. Normally would be like, oh, that's terrifying, but not terrifying, but that's horrible. But after watching stuff on Game of Thrones, I'm sitting there thinking like, oh, it's not. I should be more shocked at seeing something like that than I am. But what's bothering me about this show is that there's a lot of stuff that takes place off camera, like big characters that they spent time developing, and like their death or whatever takes place off camera, and I feel very cheated by that. Like it kind of makes a lot of the episodes feel like a waste of time.
I agree with you on that. That's something, again, that maybe they're not learning as far as the guys behind the showrunners behind the show. Maybe they're not learning from the mistakes that they made in that last season of course, the main show that it derives from. So Game of Thrones, the stuff that they learned that worked so well in season 1, but the stuff that they fell into in that last season, especially, maybe they're following through as well. Do you think there's some of that? Do you think old habits die hard?
Yeah, I mean, I think they look at like what served as a boost for like ratings, like which episodes. Because I mean, I've always been curious about going back and listening to our podcast and seeing like, hey, what do we talk about in which episodes that got a spike in listeners. I think they kind of do the same thing with shows. They'll go back and look at, like, obviously the Red Wedding was a big thing, and Jon Snow coming back to life, all the little tricks that they used in Game of Thrones. They go back and study that and like, oh well, that worked, so maybe we should add some of that into House of the Dragon. And House of the Dragon is actually like not, it's there's a book of lore written on it, but it's not like a coherent story like Game of Thrones is. So they're kind of, they're playing fast and loose with it. And um it has its ups and downs. It's not, I wouldn't say that it's like all great, but it's not all bad either. It's just some lessons I think they need to learn, and things they need to take into account.
Absolutely. So with the name though, it's obviously been a great success for HBO, and they're going to develop more shows. They are developing more shows within the Game of Thrones tree that they're branching out on. I still think the best show that they set themselves up for at the end of the series was what's her name? Targaryen, um, which the young lady,
Daenerys,
Arya, sorry,
or
Arya.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she gets on the boat, Arya Stark, and gets on the boat, and she heads to an unknown destination to check out foreign lands. I think that's a series in and of itself. I've said this several times on this show. I have no idea why they didn't continue that. She's a much beloved character, and she was heading off to unknown worlds, and you could just, the scripts basically write themselves.
Yeah, well, they had a Jon Snow one too, that was in development, and I guess it's not in development anymore. But yeah, I mean, I would be absolutely interested in seeing like what happens after Game of Thrones, because I can't imagine a world where like dragons and White Walkers exist, and there is never like any threat towards mankind ever again. It's kind of like that Lord of the Rings formula where J.R.R. Tolkien wrote about like what happens in the end of the world for Middle Earth, and there's this big epic, all these big epic battles, and it's hard to believe that something like that, with all the rich mythology of Westeros, that the Game of Thrones universe doesn't have something like that still up its sleeve somewhere.
Absolutely. So we'll be looking forward to seeing what's happening with the Game of Thrones. But my gosh, there was some mention there at Comic-Con, along with a ton of other stuff, which we'll cover a good bit of it here on the show. It is, of course, Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, the premier event for pop culture each and every year. Also, as well, of course, a record breaking time for the Marvel Universe, and a big surprise at Comic-Con, a huge surprise that no one saw coming. That's coming up on the show as well. But first, my friend, it is the record breaking fourth wall, huge, massive R-rated opening of all time, the ultimate R-rated opening of all time for a movie with an R rating. It is, of course, Deadpool and Wolverine. It did come out this weekend. It opened to, estimates are going to be saying right now, about $205 million domestically, and almost $450 million worldwide. Your thoughts, first off, on the money that has generated. Let's just be generic for right now before I get into spoilers review of Deadpool and Wolverine here in a few minutes. Is Marvel back with this weekend of Deadpool and Wolverine?
It's hard to say, man. I wouldn't say Marvel is back. I would say that they're heading in the right direction, because there's been Marvel films that have come out in the past couple of years that have been, have hit different measures of success, right?
Mhm.
So just because Deadpool and Wolverine, I mean, I think that this movie could cross $1 billion. I don't think it's going to quite reach Inside Out 2's money right now, but I think that it could get up there. If not, just underneath $1 billion, close to. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously people are loving it, and it's doing great things for the fans of Marvel, but also from what I understand, like it didn't really change that much in the multiverse. I mean, I'm sure I want to hear your thoughts on it, but just from what I'm reading, I'll be open and transparent. I've not seen the movie yet, so it's on my list of things to do hopefully soon.
But you said I could spoil it.
You could absolutely spoil it. But yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, and that's where I'm going to turn to you, when we're talking about this, about whether or not you think story-wise it's turning things around for the MCU. Money-wise, yeah, I mean, if if this works, people go and it does end up making those big bucks, I think maybe Marvel will have learned their lesson. And obviously there's okay, I'm sorry, that's a loaded comment. We're going to talk about the San Diego Comic-Con stuff in a minute, but yeah, I mean, I think money wise it is going to definitely fill Marvel's pockets and Disney's.
Yep, it is going to fill Marvel's pockets. I think it is going to hit $1 billion. When you've almost made $500 million in its first 3 days, I think it will make $1 billion. You're right. Whether or not it gets to Inside Out 2, which is going on $1.5 billion, whether it has those kind of legs after this August, because you got to remember, people are starting to go back to school. Those other parameters, people go, focus
So
on work more.
Right, people
Yeah.
are taking their kids to see Inside Out, and that's an audience we don't have for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Exactly. So I don't know if it'll reach the same heights as Inside Out 2. I think the next 2 weeks are key for this movie to see if it does reach there. I think it does get to $1 billion. And our good friend Dune Part 2, unfortunately, will bite the dust here in just a matter of days as well, as far as being number 2 for this year. It will reach at least that status of number 2, but I don't know if it'll reach that far, but we'll see. We'll see. Again, the next 2 weeks are very big for this movie. There's always the massive crash for Marvel movies in their second weekend. Is it 70%? It's usually right. It's usually right around 70% for a Marvel movie in a second weekend. But if it stays under 60%, I think it's a huge win, and it has a chance then of beating Inside Out 2.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, don't forget with the other Marvel films, especially things happening after Endgame, they had the disadvantage of all the media outlets, not just the ones that got like early screenings for the movie, but the ones that all the little tiny, everyman outlets have watched the movie and they've given their opinion. Something like Ant-Man. Like we all agreed, right, that Ant-Man sucked.
Yes, and Quantumania.
Quantumania, yeah. Sorry, Ant-Man 1 was amazing. But well, you have that word of mouth that is carried so far. But from what I'm seeing with Deadpool and Wolverine, like even even religious organizations were like, yeah, I really enjoyed the movie, but don't take your kids to see it because it's filled with dirty things.
It's Deadpool. What are you going to say? Of course. In fact, the first words my wife said after the credits rolled and the lights went up and the after credit scene is there. Yes, there is an after credit scene. The first thing she said was, I can't believe I took my kids to Deadpool. And immediately my kids are saying, well, Mom, we're 16 and 18. I think it's okay to bring us to Deadpool. So,
Right.
yes, they got a crash course in Deadpool over the course of the week, so they were ready. So yeah, it's funny. Obviously that everybody is still out there. They're in the world we have today, and the political correctness still seems to bond over something that's as not politically correct as Deadpool. But you're right. There's there's some movement out there about saying don't go take your kids to. It's an R-rated movie. What are you expecting?
Right. But even like a majority of these articles I've read, I mean, because as a parent, I cruise through this stuff and see what people are saying. And a majority of stuff I've read, people are like, yeah, I would really say that this movie was great if not for the language. And I'm like, well, that, it's the oxymoron there. But I mean, all the other articles, nothing, I've not seen a single negative thing about this movie, as far as like the story and how entertaining it is. IGN was snobby again and only gave it a 7, but I think it's getting like 8s and 9s according to a lot of other publications. So I don't think that we're gonna see as drastic of a drop off with Deadpool and Wolverine come next weekend.
Once again, it is Josh the Great Peterson along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for listening. It is the Pop Culture Cosmos. We are televised around the world on YouTube, and then of course you could catch us syndicated around the world on great radio stations and podcast outlets worldwide. And appreciate you checking us out. Check all of our great shows out. In fact, later this week I will have a State of Pro Wrestling with my good friend John Orlando, and also some other good stuff coming up in the weeks as well. But Josh, Here it comes, my friend. It is Deadpool and Wolverine. Over $200 million domestically and over $430 million worldwide. I do have a review of it. I've actually posted my written thoughts on popculturecosmos.wordpress.com in the Pop Culture Cosmos section where you can find my list of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, my guide to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where I rank all 34 Marvel movies, including this one. I won't say exactly where it is, not give all the spoilers away, but I will be going ahead into spoilers. But it is, for me, Josh, because you were talking about before the break how outside of IGN, a lot of other reviewers have given it very positive scores. I had a
Yeah.
fun time with this movie, Josh.
All
It
right.
is in my top 10 Marvel movies of all time.
Okay.
I'll just give it people generalistic on that. But you can check out where it lies on popculturecosmos.wordpress.com right there. So just to give you a start on that. So any first off questions I can give you? We are going into spoilers, so this is your last warning before we go into spoiler town. Yeah, heading up, we're gonna Josh, I got the keys, I'm driving, I'm turning on the car, man. We're headed to spoiler town, my friend.
All right. Let's step on the gas. I want to talk about it, and then I'll
Bring it
field
on.
you questions as we go, because I don't even know where to start with this. Like, just go, and if I have questions, I'll interrupt you.
All right. First off, Deadpool and Wolverine. It does a good job of creating the chemistry that, of course, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds have off the air. They have done a successful job of creating that chemistry and that bond on the air with as far as throughout the movie. And that is primarily the reason why you see this film, and that's primarily why this film sticks together throughout any other issues, narrative plot issues, throughout any other iffy special effects, or throughout anything that, as far as a little too much exposition that they call out themselves from time to time, certain plot holes, loose storytelling, any of those things that you might say that it has gets overcome by the fact that their relationship and bond and chemistry is just so good with each other throughout the film that you just can't help enjoying and having a smile on your face. Even if you're not laughing throughout the film, there are plenty of laughs, but even if you're not laughing, you have a smile on your face throughout the entire time.
Kind of that like anticipatory laughter, like you're waiting for it to happen, but also it feels good just to see it.
Absolutely.
Like watching a video about puppies, you just it just makes you feel good to see what's happening on the screen.
Yes, absolutely. So it is a really good film. It is one of the best films I've seen so far this year. So if you can put it in perspective, I guess that's probably the best way to say it. But anything specific you want me to say about this movie, my friend? Spoilers.
Okay, I need to know the cameo appearances, and not just actors, but like from across the MCU.
Okay. Well, I will tell you first off, the X-Men franchises and anything relating to the X-Men from the Fox Studios. Not every single one was used. Some of the major X-Men, like Jean Grey, Halle Berry Storm, they were mentioned in passing, and then they were shown at the end in a montage. There's a montage,
Of course.
at the end of the credits. There's a montage to the X-Men in regards to a thank you. I guess was showing some behind the scenes footage and on the scenes footage. They combined about a 5-minute thank you love letter to the X-Men. So that was nice to see. But your X-Men cameos per se were interesting. Who they chose to actually be part of this movie. The best cameo of all, and I defy anyone to say differently, was by Channing Tatum as Gambit.
Oh
Because
my
if you
gosh, really?
yes, by far and away, he was okay. I talked about how great the pairing of Deadpool and Wolverine is because of obviously they've created that friendship, that bond, and it comes through. But I would say they have a fight for the top billing because Channing Tatum's turn as Gambit is absolutely hysterical, absolutely funny. His terrible Cajun accent that is intentional throughout is absolutely just funny. It's just throughout. He just when he comes on the screen because they come on like him, Wesley Snipes Blade, and Jennifer Garner. She comes on in as Elektra. They come in, and also X-23, X.
Daphne Keen's is
Yeah,
that who you're talking about? Or
yeah,
the Lady Deathstrike, who X-23 is
no,
the Logan
yeah, from
girl.
Logan. Yes, she
All right,
comes
yeah.
in. They all come in because she's older now.
Yeah.
She comes in along with Jennifer Garner's Elektra, also as well, of course, Wesley Snipes Blade and Gambit, which with Channing Tatum, it never actually happened. I don't
Yeah.
think he ever appeared on screen. That was something that they were going to develop because you got to remember your guy, Taylor Kitsch, was Gambit in the previous
I
X-Men
was
films.
part of me was hoping he'd show up in this one, but I guess
Yes.
that's not gonna
No,
happen.
but the thing, as you know, for years in development, Channing Tatum as Gambit was going to be the thing, and
Yeah.
him coming onto the screen, all for him because they're providing resistance. Once the Deadpool and Wolverine go into the void, uh, they they meet up against Cassandra.
Mm.
Cassandra, as far as the evil brother, sister to Charles Xavier,
Yeah.
Cassandra. She, is controlling the void. They escape from her clutches and meet up with the Resistance, who is Channing Tatum, Blade as Gambit, Blade with Wesley Snipes, Jennifer Garner as Elektra, and then of course X-23 as well. And those four, but yes, Channing Tatum. Once you meet up with him, he absolutely just kills it. By the way, for Jennifer Garner fans out there, yes, there is a Ben Affleck joke. It's a quick and blink and you don't miss it, and it is there. So she does take a shot at him. Wesley Snipes is really solid in the role, as far as Blade is concerned, an older, more mature Blade, but yes, he's still there as well. So that's as far as the cameos for Stomp. Those are the best cameos. Happy Hogan, John Favreau plays a part in it at the beginning, where I guess, as you could say, Deadpool. Wade Wilson tries to go out and audition and interview for a job with the Avengers and doesn't quite cut it. So the theme is that he fails at the Avengers, he fails at being X-Men, so he has to try and move on from there. So he becomes a used car salesman. So he has to try and deal with that. So that's where the story really begins, and then the TVA comes into his life from there. But the thing is, though, the way they incorporate why the TVA needs him is that part of it is the loose storytelling that doesn't get really told well. But again, once Deadpool meets up with Wolverine, you kind of just give it a pass per se as far as the loose storytelling, because they also kind of let you in on the joke as far as how it was structured, how the movie was made, and the exposition. Anytime there's like exposition, to any length, they kind of call it out themselves as far as how much exposition that
Yeah.
they're doing. So it really is a fun time with all the cast of characters there. But those are probably some of the biggest cameos, and of course, I have to go ahead and would be remiss if I didn't say that there is a cameo from Chris Evans as well.
That's right. I know he plays the Human Torch. Yeah.
That he does. He is the Human Torch. He does do a good job himself. If Channing Tatum didn't steal all the scenes later on in the movie, it would have been the best cameo would have been him, in my opinion. So he did a really good job himself before he gets an untimely demise. So.
Okay, so what about like from the mainline MCU? Like, is there besides Happy Hogan, is there anybody else that shows up?
Um, not in that particular way. There is a kind of a blink and you don't and you'll miss it kind of thing with Chris Hemsworth, Thor,
Okay.
because it's supposed to be foreshadowing. One of the things he sees possibly is a possible timeline in the future where Thor is crying over his dead body, or was it just an alternate universe or whatnot? So over Deadpool's dead body. So you don't know if it's going to be actualized, or if it's just something that was put in there for fun. So yeah, that's probably the only one that you can really say as far as MCU wise, direct Avengers wise is there. I mean, they do flash all the highlights from previous Marvel movies up there on the screen when he's looking at it, as far as what the possibilities when he's at the TVA of what he can do to be a part of that. When he's given the cell job on becoming part of a TVA, so you could say that's going to be the case. But yeah, there was no real Deadpool. MCU's I guess appearances in Deadpool. They still kind of kept it separate for now. Deadpool and Wolverine was more of a self-contained thing, and people are right. Whoever's out there saying that this is not a full correction for the MCU, I think they're right in that. They do tie a lot into the TVA part of it, but you don't even get a Loki appearance to give you an idea. So it's very self-contained, and you just hope that they will incorporate more into the future of the MCU. But there is whatever's mentioned on the MCU, my friend, is just it's sprinkled in, but it's more talked about than shown in regards to that.
Okay, so now I gotta ask though, did they iron out any of the timeline situations, like different world, like what worlds each character exists in? Does it end with Deadpool and Wolverine getting into the MCU, or are they still closed off from that? Like, talk to me about that.
They have the capability because their relationship now with the TVA, because at the end they do bond with the TVA, and now you could say that they have a existing relationship with the TVA. The TVA probably, if they need to, can come and ask for help to put them in into the right timeline. They talk about the 616 timeline a lot, and that was the one I believe that was in danger, was the 616 timeline. So in essence you're saying that the 616 timeline includes mutants, includes Deadpool, and includes Wolverine.
Okay, hold on. 616 is the main MCU timeline?
Yes. That was the one in peril. The sacred timeline,
Okay.
I think was in peril, as far as it's concerned, and that's all the timelines were at peril at one time at the very end, because what Cassandra got a hold of with a time ripper. So of course Deadpool and Wolverine saved the day and saved all the timelines at that point in time. But yeah, I think that you could now say that they can be grabbed easily into the MCU, which we'll probably not see until Secret Wars would be my guess, because we're going to talk about why here coming up in a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, I guess there was an expectation there that this was going to wipe out the existing properties from Fox and New Line and then merge everything into the MCU, but I guess it did not do that.
No, it was more self-contained. Would be the probably best way I would say it. Than anything, it does obviously carry some aspects of what's going on with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, they're mentioned throughout as far as verbally. Deadpool mentions stuff that's going on in the MCU or characters in the MCU, quite a bit. So that's not ever in doubt as far as that's concerned because it's fourth wall breaking.
Mhm.
But I think that you're going to have to be able to still wait for a full blending of more stuff. And I think Fantastic Four, even though that's in another timeline, I think if I'm not mistaken, the
Yeah.
first steps, the Fantastic Four, that may be presented in a different timeline as well. So that I'm not sure based on the news that we got at Comic Con. So it's still a little bit unclear. If you're asking for a clarity to the MCU, clarity for the sacred timeline, clarity for everything going on in the MCU, you still be at a loss, going forward until it gets truly clarified. But at least for now, the sacred timeline and the 616 timeline has been saved, my friend.
Okay. All right. So we're moving towards something here. So
Yes.
yeah. I mean, hopefully we get to see.
Well, I
What
just want to say that from the Loki series, Wumi Mosaku, who is Hunter B-15, she is probably the most prominent character from the MCU outside of Happy Hogan that appears in Deadpool, just to give you an
Oh,
idea. So it ties in a little bit together. So
yeah.
to let you
Yeah.
know. So yeah,
Oh, all
but
right. Well,
yeah.
hey. So what on the rating scale where you at?
I'm at a solid 8.5, eight and a
Okay.
half.
That's pretty high praise.
Yeah. I think again, any loose storytelling elements and plot holes were ironed out because the fact that the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman is just so good. Uh, Again, you have to let your imagination run with it as far as how they get to where they get and why they're doing to what they're doing. It doesn't tell a great job in doing that, but it's just so much fun. It's just
Yeah.
so much fun seeing these two together and seeing what they're going through. Of course, there's all the Deadpools that are out there. Blake Lively is, of course, because there's a scene where they have to face off against dozens of Deadpools, variations of Deadpools, including a Matthew McConaughey Deadpool against their own kids
Yeah.
Deadpool. Blake Lively as Lady Deadpool, who Blake Lively is, she's a star in her own right, but she is also Ryan Reynolds' wife. So yes, there's a scene where they fight up against Dogpool steals the scene, steals any scene that he's in with absolutely ugly dog, but with of course the tongue that constantly licks the face of Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds also does dual work as Nice Pool, just to let you know as well. Nice Pool, you could take him or leave it. He is, Nice Pool just as created as a character, just as a foil for the plot, but it's not, as entertaining of a character as Deadpool because he just can't do the things that Deadpool does because he's so darn nice.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, like I said, it's really good. The special effects are iffy at times, and I'll just leave it at that. I mean, there's a couple scenes and a couple characters that could have been better dealt with as far as the special effects are concerned. The cast themselves, the main cast, there obviously is a ton of older X-Men characters. If you're familiar with some of the X-Men from the Fox series, some of them return for not anybody big named, but if you're talking about the old Pyro, as far as
Yeah.
some there's
Sabretooth.
Sabretooth, Toad, I wish it had been the Sabretooth that I enjoyed seeing with oh, what's his name? Schreiber, Lee
Schreiber.
Schreiber.
Yeah.
Lee Schreiber. Yeah, I would have loved his Sabretooth, but it wasn't. It was the Sabretooth from the early X-Men. I forget his name. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. But yes, you will see some of the bits of that as far as the X-Men from the past, inside the movie itself, in the void, trapped with Deadpool and Wolverine. But yeah, it's a good movie, my friend. It's a good movie, and then of course there's also another blink and miss it cameo from Henry Cavill as well. So, and he does
Really?
yes, there is. I won't say. Should I tell you where?
Yeah. Just do it, man. Just lay it out for me.
All right, we're gonna go full spoilers. There is a montage that Deadpool calls out about early on in the movie, him trying to find the right Wolverine. And of course, he picks the worst Wolverine ultimately to get the job done. But in his search for Wolverines, he goes through various Wolverines, and it is, as far as the Wolverine is concerned, one of them that he meets up again is a Cavalrine with Henry Cavill. So,
Oh, interesting. Okay, because I know there are rumors about him taking on that role, but also Daniel Radcliffe. So I was wondering if there's a Daniel Radcliffe cameo in this too.
he was supposed to have been rumored to be the Patch, to be playing poker at that one, but that is not him. That is actually Hugh Jackman that he comes up again. So I do not think, unless I see it, yeah, he's not in it. So, but you will see Lady Deathstrike for a second there as well. You'll see Ray Park as Toad. You'll see, some of the old X-Men in there, as far as some of the lesser known X-Men, as far as is concerned. And yes, that in the Deadpool, a lot of famous people like Blake Lively, Matthew McConaughey, Nathan Fillion are members of the Deadpool party, to just let you know as well. So that's pretty much what I could go ahead and say about the movie. Again, you just got to let things slide as far as the plot is concerned and how they get there and doing what they're doing, and just enjoy it for what it's worth. Just the fourth wall breaking and the constant fighting and bickering of course, Hugh and Ryan, and just enjoy it for what it's worth.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely I want to go see it. I think I just got to wait till after baby gets here.
All right. Well, if that's the case, please let us know your thoughts out there on what you think of Deadpool and Wolverine. Again, it opened to a massive $205, according to estimates, $1 million domestically here in the US, and over 430, almost $450 million worldwide. Please go ahead and let us know if your thoughts on the movie. If you checked it out already, at popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, that comes on the heels. They actually got a chance to show it off at Comic-Con. Comic-Con is the major event of the year for pop culture. So much news announced, but none bigger than in Hall H for Marvel, who once again took over the spotlight. They did a smart job this time. They did not plan out the entire timeline. Again, Josh, as Melinda and I joked on Friday with the whiteboard and, like, oh, well, we should have done this.
It comes back to bite them in the butt all the time.
Yeah, exactly. They did announce 2 movies, however, that are coming up. And 2026 will be Avengers Doomsday instead of the Kang Dynasty. Out goes Kang, in comes Doctor Doom, and 2027 will be Secret Wars. Guess what's going on with Doctor Doom? Because Doctor Doom at the very end was announced, and this is the major news at Comic-Con. Doctor Doom was announced, and it was announced as Robert Downey Jr. playing the role, which no one seemed to get coming. It's funny because, I was reading an article and then watching some extra videos and news, And it appears that this comes full circle, not because just that he's coming back as the bad guy, as a top bad guy when he was the top hero for the Avengers, but the fact is he actually auditioned for Doctor Doom way back in the original Fantastic Four movie around 20 some odd years ago. So, your thoughts, my friend, on Robert Downey Jr. being the next Doctor Doom?
So at first I was excited. I mean, I still am excited, but the more, and then as the news about the Russos, but um, we'll talk about that in a minute, anyways.
Well, we reported on the Russos getting the deal that they were negotiating with Marvel on it. Yeah, it was officially announced they are the
Yeah.
directors for both of those Avengers.
So it makes me wonder, though. I mean, is there an MCU that is capable of telling a story that's going to get people hooked without having to rely on old story threads, talent, and actors?
Well, that's what they tried to do for years now. They tried to bring in new characters, tell new stories. It's funny because I saw someone on IGN was going off on Marvel and saying, that they got to create some of the things that we say about the Star Wars movies. We talked about going into a new part of the Star Wars universe and just creating something from scratch away from the Skywalkers. We talk about them going into a new direction on that. Well, they kind of sort of did with the Marvel universe over the past 5 years, and it really hasn't worked out well, in my opinion. I mean, well, most people's opinion, the dollar's opinion, as far as telling new stories for the most part, and only just relying some of it on what happened previously, and it hasn't really quite worked out. So they are going back to what's familiar for this audience before it can tell something new again. And I understand the mixed part about it, but I do think it's a good move and a solid move, especially if they can incorporate the Tony Stark character, not the Tony Stark that died in the 616 universe, but a variant of Tony Stark. If they can go ahead and do that, the only thing I have and the only problem I have with this, I wish they would have saved this for a surprise. I really wish they would have saved this for a surprise for the actual movie. They could have, because it's just like Deadpool. It's just like a role where you don't have to have RDJ on the set. He could just do voiceovers until the actual time he lifts up the hood and the mask and shows himself to the Avengers. That would have been a killer, my friend. That would have been an absolute killer.
I mean, the climate we're living in. It's impossible to keep a secret like that. Like there's
I
no way they'd be able to keep that under wraps. Yeah, I wonder. I've been farting around on the internet and seeing that there is a comic book called The Infamous Iron Man, where Doctor Doom takes over the role of Iron Man. I wonder if they're going to be taking elements out of that comic book. But also, has it been said that he's going to be playing a villain, or is he going to have some sort of like redemptive arc in the movie and then be a good guy in Secret Wars? There's so many questions that I have in regards to this, but it is exciting to have him back, and I think the Russos are the right move. But where do they go after this? They've turned to the Russos. They've turned to Robert Downey Jr. Once Secret Wars is over, and I'm sure Secret Wars is going to be amazing. What happens to the MCU?
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing, is Doctor Doom, going to be that huge of a role? And apparently it is, because he's going to be keying the next two Avengers movies, and to have Robert Downey Jr. heading that up, I guess it's comfort food for Disney and Marvel. It's comfort food because they know what they're going to get. They know what they're going to get in RDJ. They obviously Kang, for various levels of reasons.
So what's
Has
going to
not worked
happen to
out.
Kang? What do you? Because I mean, they've done this huge setup for him. what's going to happen? Is it just going to be like, oh, that didn't actually happen, don't worry about it? Or are they going to
They'll probably take care of it somehow, try to thematically go ahead and sweep it under the rug, as far as it's concerned. The Kang character is probably going to be, I don't know, disposed of in some form or fashion. But because they want Doctor Doom to be the bigger part of it, but they probably will do something on screen to go ahead and try to explain it, that he's no longer the big baddie.
Yeah, because that's the only issue I see, like as far as like making these next two Avenger films. Uh, wait, I'm sorry. There's two. Wasn't there originally supposed to be more, like three or four Avenger films planned, like Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars, something else, something else.
Yeah, but
Uh, I don't know, but yeah, they're gonna have to find a way to patch this up, because if they just kind of like overlook it, it's going to come across as being incredibly lazy, and it's not going to really help the position they're in right now.
no, and that's going to be the thing. So we'll see. As far as how far they go with keeping Kang. I don't think they're going to keep Kang much, and I think they're just going to try and figure out a way to phase him out. Because it hasn't been successful. It hasn't been successful. This, I thought, giving the fact that it was the off the court, off the actual the film, Jonathan Majors, his troubles off screen, and also as well what he's done on screen, I think hasn't been bad at all. I think he's an excellent actor, but unfortunately, the stuff that he's done off the screen, it's telling. It's something that Disney and Marvel do not want to be a part of, and they're gonna try and find a way to uh, efficiently and quickly get Kang off as a character because of it. And it was still probably going to end up that way anyways, despite his legal troubles, because the fact it just didn't generate volume. It didn't generate enough interest. I thought his character was the best part of Loki season 2, but unfortunately, his work in Ant-Man Quantumania was just not good enough to drive in business. People don't, I guess the audience doesn't see him as a large enough or viable threat like they did Thanos.
Yeah.
So and ultimately it was probably not going to work out, even regardless of his legal issues. It was probably going to be still leading up to a RDJ Doom moment anyways, because the fact that Kang has just not been a viable draw for Marvel audiences.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting, because if they don't do it in the right way, it's going to make Ant-Man and Loki, and I think he was tied to the Marvels a little bit, but it's going to make all of that feel like a waste of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are your thoughts out there on Robert Downey Jr. being the next Doctor Doom in Avengers 6 and Avengers 7? Please let us know your thoughts. Pop Culture Cosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, one last segment left. Wanted to go ahead and mention some of the things that went on in the world of Comic-Con this past weekend. It is still going on as we speak, as far as it's wrapping up, but most of the major stuff got out of the way, including a new sequel or a prequel announced from The Boys, because The Boys is going to go into season 5, its final season, but they are giving you more boys because they can't leave it alone. Obviously, they got great numbers. It's one of the top 5 seasons, this past season of The Boys, all time on Amazon. So Vought Rising is coming. Your thoughts on Vought Rising, a prequel starring Jensen Ackles, who you remember is
Soldier Boy.
Soldier Boy and Homelander's dad. So, and Aya Cash, who played Stormfront in season 2. Those two battling out in Vought Rising.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I honestly, man, I got to catch up with that show, but I didn't see them leaving it alone. I didn't see the season 5 of The Boys being the end of The Boys. I figured that they're going to find a way to extend it a little more, and then maybe they'll do a prequel, and maybe they'll do something that takes place after The Boys. I don't I don't feel like there's a property they're going to just leave alone.
No, I don't think so as well. I did want to mention the other major announcement that I thought was kind of interesting uh, to me, at least. I thought that, of course, they gave you with the Marvel Hall H the latest trailers. They gave you footage from Thunderbolts. They gave you some footage from the upcoming Brave New World for Captain America. Those are some of the things that they brought out. And then, of course, they announced Fantastic Four the first steps, my friend. What's your thoughts on Fantastic Four and how big that movie can be?
Oof. Okay, so I know they have said that Fantastic Four team will be in Secret Wars, but this to me seems like one of those one-shot comic books.
Mhm,
Actually, you remember how the Marvel MCU movies used to do like the one-shots, the little like short
mhm.
episodes before? I don't feel like we're going to be seeing this Fantastic Four team after Secret Wars happens, unless something massive happens and just merges all the timelines. But I don't think that that's something people want because the just with the way the eras are crossing over to each other.
Absolutely. But we'll go ahead and keep our eye on what's going on with all the Marvel stuff here on the show. When those trailers come out, as far as the new footage for Brave New World or the actual Comic-Con trailers for Thunderbolts or Fantastic Four, if they show anything from that, we'll go ahead and make sure that we present it to you right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. If you want to go ahead and check out a lot of the trailers, I posted a lot of the trailers on Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook right there for you on that. DC once again gets outshone. James Gunn, I don't think was really ready to go ahead and showcase a lot at this particular Comic Con. Do you think that was a mistake? I mean, all they showed off was really Creature Commandos and Creature Commandos, the animated series coming to Max. Of course, they showed off earlier in the week before the Penguin series. Actually, they dropped the Penguin trailer, a latest Penguin trailer, but they showed off the Joker 2 trailer earlier in the week. Do you think DC took another swing and a miss at Comic Con this year?
Either that or they're just being cautious because I mean we didn't see any live action stuff from. I mean, we saw the Penguin stuff, but we didn't see any live action stuff from the new DC universe as we know it. So I don't think that they were not doing it right. I think they're just trying to be cautious and keep everything they've got close to their chest. But also, I could be wrong. Maybe they haven't learned from past mistakes. But uh, I guess cool. Colin Farrell's doing his thing again.
You just cannot tell. It's so funny when he does the intro as himself, and then he goes right to the penguin in that trailer. It just it's one of the best latex costume jobs I have ever seen. You just don't recognize Colin Farrell in that role, the penguin. I think he does a great job on it, and I again, that's one of the things they really do right is with the penguin on that. So
Yeah, but you know what? Like they did his character the dirty in the Batman by making him like a side character to the main mafia boss, where they could have made him like a truly terrifying villain. They kind of didn't allow him to rise to those heights.
absolutely. So we'll be just checking out the Penguin later on this year. It does look really good, so I'm intrigued what they'll do with that. But before we head on out, my friend, I wanted to mention the Star Trek was the other major showcase over the course of the weekend. A lot of other things were announced as far as on a smaller scale, but Star Trek did announce that they've got a live action comedy that's now in development. As far as that's concerned, I thought that was kind of funny. They even hinted that their musical episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds went off so well that they may be planning a musical down the line. I thought that was even funnier because it did work out well, the Star Trek Strange New Worlds musical episode, but I think they should just leave it in that context. But all right, doing something full blown was kind of an interesting take. But yes, we did get to see Michelle Yeoh in the Section 31 special that's coming up here in the not too distant future. We did get more information on who's going to be part of Star Trek Star Trek Fleet Academy, I should say. So some interesting things going on in the Star Trek universe. I am relieved in a way, Josh, because of the fact that Paramount is going to go through that merger, the $8 billion merger between them and Skydance. I was concerned about what the future holds for Star Trek, and especially Melinda, who is our Star Trekkie of all Trekkies here on the show. And I'm grateful to say that, and I'm glad to say that there is a future for Star Trek coming up.
I tell you, man, this comedy thing's risky business, though.
Yeah,
Because
that action comedy, I'm not sure. I'm especially to take away from Star Trek, as far as the Lower Decks, which has been such a great show for them. That's in its final season. They're ending that run. I thought that's a bad move. I think that show has a lot more life in it. To do that and to put a live action comedy out in its place, that's a very risky move.
it is a very risky move, because you're taking a show with like lore that people love and they take seriously, and you're kind of making a joke out of it. So if this, what could happen here is, like, say this show is successful, then we're going to see all the other Star Trek shows that are supposed to have like a serious tone to them become buddy comedies, and that can completely reshape what Star Trek is and turn a lot of fans away from that franchise.
Star Trek bit, as far as the Star Trek video game that's out there, Starfleet Command. I think it's getting a Galaxy Quest DLC. Just wanted to go ahead and mention that because Galaxy Quest is in its 25th anniversary. Hoping they'll do something more in that universe someday. Would be great to see. But I also wanted to mention some other things that went on. Monty Python and the Holy Grail is coming to Magic the Gathering. So they'll be part of that series. And of course, they showed off the Yakuza live action series that's coming up here, Like a Dragon and Yakuza, which, again, yeah, that's great. But Mass Effect should be always the way to go for the next step.
For sure.
But they talked a lot about video game adaptations. We mentioned it previously on the Friday show about video game adaptations still being a great part of what's going on. BioShock was delayed, though. They're retooling that. But they talked about Dragon's Lair, that coming to Netflix at some point in the future as well. But yeah, at least video game adaptations are getting a lot more respect, despite what we talk about with Halo. So
yeah, well, people are recognizing the power in the source material. I guess, unlike Halo, the trick is to actually get somebody who enjoys the game.
Absolutely. And the collectibles, as our man in the collectibles knowledge out there, is still a hot commodity, all the Comic-Con exclusives. But my friend, it's been a great episode. If you out there, though, have any thoughts, please let us know on Comic-Con, what you liked and didn't like about Comic-Con, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. But Josh, any last thoughts, my friend? Are you going to get all your hands on all those great Comic-Con collectibles?
I mean, what I can. I mean, Funko has some Comic-Con exclusives you can get still up on their website. Still think there's some left. I know they announced that there's going to be next year, they're going to be releasing some Playmates is going to be releasing their Mighty Morphin Power Ranger stuff. And I think there's going to be an exclusive next year for Power Rangers. So that should be cool. But yeah, I mean, I miss it, man. I miss being able to go to the San Diego Comic-Con. Thanks to shows like Walking Dead, Big Bang Theory, like it kind of blew up. There's a time when we were at National University, like I went pretty consistently, but then in the years that followed, like it got almost impossible to get tickets to it.
Still my goal, my friend. That's on my bucket list. So I'm hoping to.
Yeah, those tickets are just hard. Even as a consumer, those tickets are hard to come by unless you're rich, man.
So for Josh the Great Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's not a beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great